everyone, it's Maki here. Today, I would like to share a short story related to the Gundam series with you. Have you heard of the Apogee motor? It's a component that is mentioned quite often in the Universal Century series. It even appears in games as a mobile suit part. However, the term Apogee motor is actually incorrect. As a word, it's incorrect. Nevertheless, the phenomenon itself isn't strange at all. This time, I'll explain how it works in the real world, as well as discussing similar phenomena in the Universal Century universe. Before we dive into the main topic, let me make a quick announcement. On my channel, I'm recruiting supporters through memberships. For just 99 cents a month, you can get a name badge and commenting perks. Alright then, let's begin our story. In the Universal Century universe, an Apogee motor refers to the thrusters used to control the posture of a mobile suit. The term refers to the small thrusters installed all over the body. However, as I mentioned earlier, this isn't the original meaning of the term. It's actually a misuse. In Japan, the exploits of a man named Mr. Kita have become somewhat of a talking point. He's not involved in producing the Gundam series. He's just an ordinary person. He enjoys explaining satellites and aerospace technology. Attention was drawn to Apogee motors after Mr. Kitty took photos of a space engineering exhibition room and shared his explanations. Let's take a look at his post. Attention, all Gundam fans! This is a real Apogee motor. He posted a photo of the explanation panel alongside a photo of the actual Apogee motor. He also shared another photo explaining the role of the Apogee motor. Let's take a look at that explanation. The word apogee in Apogee motor means the farthest point of an orbit. When launching an artificial satellite into space, it is first placed into an elliptical orbit. In this diagram, that's shown with a yellow line. After that, the satellite's altitude is increased and it is placed into a circular orbit. This is shown with a red line in the diagram. Since it provides acceleration at the apogee, it is called an apogee motor. Originally, the term apogee motor referred to a powerful thruster used to raise the altitude of an artificial satellite and push it into orbit. Therefore, using the term apogee motor to refer to the small thrusters used to control the posture of a mobile suit is considered a misuse of the term. So should we stop using the term apogee motor? Not necessarily. It seems that even the staff responsible for creating the Gundam settings understood that apogee motor was being used differently from its original meaning. For example, in the Gundam F91 setting material book Mobile Suit the official edition, there is an explanation of apogee motors. This includes the same definition of the term in the real world that Mr. Kitta provided earlier, and as that in the world of Gundam, it is used to describe thrusters that control the posture of a mobile suit. There is also a mention of this in the Master Archive for Victory Gundam. It is worth noting that this Master Archive was published under the concept of being a technical research book written in the Universal Century. It presents the opinions of researchers living within that world. Inside the Master Archive, it states that in the Universal Century, the terms vernier thruster and apogee motor were used interchangeably. As a result, thrusters used for posture adjustments came to be conventionally referred to as apogee motors. This is why even the small Minovsky flight system thrusters installed in the Victory Gundam are referred to as Apogee motors. let me show you an illustration. Here is a list of the small thrusters installed in the Victory Gundam. In this image, the areas marked with green lines represent Apogee motors that use conventional propellant. All the other thrusters work through the Misuse flight system. The Misuse flight system uses Misuse particles to generate propulsion and lift. Its principle of operation is completely different to that of real-world Apogee motors. Over time, however, the term Apogee motor came to be used for these posture controlling devices too. Now let's take a look at a similar case. The new Gundam's weapon ensures counterattack, for example. The beam funnel is such an iconic weapon. It's also fascinating because it was one of the first wireless weapons of its kind to be mounted on the Gundam. However, did you know that the use of the word funnel is technically incorrect? The weapon is actually more accurately classified as a bit. A bit is a wireless weapon with its own built-in generator. While it can use plenty of energy, the drawback is that it becomes larger in size. The weapons used by the L method in the original 0079 are bits. Funnels, on the other hand, were designed using energy cap technology. Rather than using a generator, they can store mega particles internally before firing them. This makes them smaller than bits. However, the beam funnel actually has an integrated generator. Therefore, in strict classification terms, it should be considered a bit rather than a funnel. In fact, even the funnels mounted on the Neo Zeo Mobile Armor Alpha Zero have built-in generators. This means that these weapons are by definition bits. However, since the term funnel is more commonly used, people continue to call them funnels. Some people also think that funnel is just a shortened name for funnel type bit. However, if we take not having a generator as the defining feature of funnel type, then the name beam funnel does sound a little strange. But language often evolves in this way, with meanings shifting over time, even in the real world. So, while we might say that it is incorrect to use the term Apogee motor for small thrusters used for posture control in the Universal Century, it is also possible that advancements in Apogee motor technology eventually led to the creation of MOBILESUIT posture control thrusters. Of course, bear in mind that this interpretation is purely my own. Lastly, Mr. Kito shared some additional interesting information. Since the topic of Apogee motors is receiving attention, here's something interesting for Gundam fans. The inside of the thrusters on Zeon-type mobile suits is often painted red. In fact, the inside of the Soyuz rocket is also painted red. However, the red parts on the Soyuz are protective covers for the thrusters. These are parts that are removed before the rocket is launched. Paying attention to these kinds of small details, as well as the differences between the terminology used in the series and in the real world, can make analyzing the Gundam series a really enjoyable experience. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. See you again in the next episode.